I still can't believe it happened. My own son, the boy I raised, married the woman he loves, and I wasn't even there. Not only was I not there, but I found out after it happened, completely by accident, when I innocently asked about their wedding plans. My daughter-in-law, with a smirk I'll never forget, simply said, "Oh, we got married yesterday." Can you even imagine the shock, the betrayal, the absolute gut-wrenching pain of hearing those words? I'm still reeling from it, and honestly, I don't know if I'll ever truly recover. Tell me, would you have been able to forgive something like that? Would you have just smiled and said congratulations? Or would you have felt the same profound hurt I did? Let me take you back to the beginning, before my world was completely turned upside down. My son, Daniel, is my only child. His father passed away when Daniel was young, so it's always just been the two of us against the world. We've always had an incredibly close bond, a bond that I cherished above all else. I poured my heart and soul into raising him, making sure he had every opportunity, every advantage I could possibly give him. He grew into a wonderful, responsible, and kind young man, and I was immensely proud of him. He was my best friend, my confidant, my everything. We talked every day, sometimes multiple times a day. He'd tell me about his work, his friends, his life, and I'd offer advice, support, and, of course, unconditional love. Then, about 3 years ago, he met Sarah. At first, I was thrilled for him. Daniel deserved happiness, and he seemed genuinely smitten with her. She was pretty, intelligent, and seemed to make him laugh. I welcomed her with open arms, inviting her to family dinners, holidays, and always making an effort to get to know her. I wanted her to feel like part of our small family. I truly did. But as time went on, I started to notice little things. Sarah had a way of subtly putting a wedge between Daniel and me. She'd make comments about how much time he spent on the phone with me, or how often we saw each other. At first, I dismissed it as typical new relationship jitters, maybe a bit of insecurity on her part. I tried to reassure her, to include her even more, thinking that if she felt secure, these behaviors would stop. They didn't. She started suggesting that Daniel and I reduce our calls, saying he needed more space, and that we were perhaps too enmeshed. This was a completely foreign concept to me. We were a mother and son who loved each other and enjoyed each other's company. What was wrong with that? Daniel, bless his heart, would try to mediate, saying things like, "Mom, Sarah just wants us to be a bit more independent." But I could see the conflict in his eyes. He was torn between his loyalty to me and his desire to please Sarah. I started to feel like I was losing him, little by little. Our daily calls became every other day, then every few days. Our weekly dinners became monthly. It felt like a slow, painful erosion of the relationship I held so dear. The engagement happened about a year ago. Daniel called me, sounding a little nervous, to tell me he'd proposed. Of course, I was happy for him. It's what every mother wants for her child to find love and build a life with someone. I congratulated them warmly, and immediately my mind went to wedding planning. I imagined helping Sarah pick out her dress, discussing floral arrangements, tasting cakes, and most importantly, being there every step of the way for my son's big day. I've always dreamed of seeing him get married, but that's where the problems truly began. Every time I brought up the wedding, Sarah would become evasive. "Oh, we haven't set a date yet," or "we're still figuring things out," she'd say, always with a vague smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. Daniel would usually just nod along, avoiding eye contact. I tried to be patient, to respect their process, but it felt like I was being deliberately shut out. I offered to help financially, to help plan, to do anything they needed. My offers were always politely, but firmly, declined. "We want to do it our way," Sarah would say. "We want to keep it simple." I tried to talk to Daniel about it, to express my feelings. I told him how much it hurt to be excluded, how much I wanted to be a part of such a significant event in his life. He would listen, his face a mixture of sympathy and frustration, and then he'd say, "Mom, you know Sarah is a very independent person. She just wants to do things her own way. It's not about you." But it felt like it was all about me. It felt like Sarah was systematically cutting me out, and Daniel was letting her. Months passed. Every family gathering, every phone call, I'd try to gently inquire about the wedding. My questions were always met with the same noncommittal answers. I started to get a knot in my stomach whenever the topic came up. It became clear to me that they weren't just keeping it simple or doing it their way. They were actively keeping me in the dark. I even suspected at one point that they might elope, and I braced myself for that possibility, though it would still sting. But even then, I thought, surely they would tell me afterward, wouldn't they? A call, a message, anything. Then came the day I asked the question that changed everything. It was a Tuesday evening, just a regular phone call with Daniel. We were chatting about mundane things, his work, my garden, and then, almost casually, I asked, "So, have you and Sarah made any progress on wedding plans? I was just wondering if there's a timeline or anything you could share." My heart was in my throat as I waited for his response. There was a pause on the other end, and then I heard Sarah's voice in the background, muffled but clear enough for me to hear her say something to Daniel, and then a little laugh. My blood ran cold, and that's when she took the phone from Daniel. Her voice was syrupy sweet, but with an edge I couldn't mistake. "Oh, about the wedding," she said, her tone dripping with mock innocence. "Well, we actually got married yesterday." The world stopped. The air left my lungs, my hand tightened around the phone, my knuckles turning white. You what?" I stammered, my voice barely a whisper. I must have sounded completely bewildered, because she repeated it, slowly, deliberately, as if savoring every word. "We got married, yesterday, just a small ceremony at the courthouse. It was lovely. I remember a buzzing sound in my ears, a sudden rush of heat to my face, and then a profound coldness. I looked at my reflection in the window, and I looked utterly devastated. I could hear Daniel in the background, saying something like, "Mom, we just wanted to keep it low key. My son, my only child, got married without telling me, without inviting me, without even a courtesy call afterward to say, 'Hey, we did it.' I don't remember what I said next. I think I might have just hung up, or maybe Daniel ended the call. It's all a blur of pain and disbelief. My beautiful dream of being there for his wedding, of witnessing that momentous occasion, was shattered into a million pieces. It wasn't just about missing a party. It was about being deliberately excluded from a pivotal moment in my son's life, a moment that should have been shared with his mother, who loves him more than life itself. It was about the lack of respect, the casual cruelty of being told after the fact, as if it were a trivial detail. So that's the situation I was in, and I had to make a choice. Here I was, heartbroken and blindsided. My son, the man I dedicated my life to, had gotten married, and I found out like an afterthought. I was grappling with immense pain, betrayal, and a deep sense of disrespect. I knew I couldn't just pretend it didn't hurt. I knew I couldn't just move on as if nothing had happened. Before I tell you what happened next, I want you to pause and comment below what you would have done in my shoes. Would you have confronted them immediately? Would you have cut them off? Or would you have tried to understand? What would your next step have been? After the initial shock wore off, a wave of anger washed over me. quickly followed by an even deeper sadness. I locked myself in my room and just cried. I cried for the lost dream, for the fractured relationship, for the son I felt I no longer knew. I felt utterly alone. When Daniel finally called back a few hours later, I didn't pick up. I couldn't. I knew if I heard his voice, I would either scream or just break down completely. He sent a text message later that evening, a long one, filled with apologies and explanations. He said they loved me, that it wasn't personal, that Sarah just wanted a small, intimate ceremony without any family drama. Family drama. What drama? All I ever did was try to be supportive and loving. He claimed they were overwhelmed with planning and just decided to elope impulsively, but that they had planned to tell me soon. Soon, they waited until I asked about it. It felt like a carefully constructed lie to minimize their disrespect. The next morning, I was a wreck, but I knew I had to respond, to set a boundary. I couldn't let this slide. I called Daniel, my voice shaking. Daniel. I began, trying to keep my voice steady. I'm heartbroken, truly heartbroken. I can't believe you would do this to me, your own mother. I've always been there for you, loved you unconditionally, and this is how you repay me, by shutting me out of the most important day of your life. He immediately started with the excuses again. Mom, please, don't make this a big deal. We just wanted it to be simple. Simple? I interrupted, my voice rising. Simple for whom, Daniel? Not for me. I wanted to be there. I deserved to be there. This wasn't about simplicity. This was about deliberately excluding me. And the way Sarah told me, with that smirk, as if it was some kind of joke, that was a knife to my heart. I told him that I couldn't just pretend it was okay. I told him that I needed space, that I couldn't just pick up where we left off. I explained that I needed time to process this profound betrayal. He pleaded, he apologized again. He said Sarah felt bad too, which I highly doubted. But I stood firm. I told him that actions have consequences, and this action had deeply wounded me. I wasn't asking for an apology. I was asking for respect and consideration, which had been completely absent. The conversation ended with a lot of tears on my part and a lot of frustrated sighs from Daniel. I knew I was hurting him by pulling away, but I felt I had no choice. If I didn't stand up for myself now, what else would they do? Would I be excluded from future milestones, from grandchildren's births, from everything that mattered? I had to draw a line. For the next few weeks, I kept my distance. I didn't call them. I didn't respond to their texts immediately. It was incredibly difficult, as every fiber of my being wanted to reach out to my son. But I knew I had to maintain this boundary for my own sanity and for the sake of our relationship, if it was to have any chance of recovery. Daniel continued to text, mostly short messages, asking how I was, if I was still mad. I replied politely but distantly. Then, about a month after their secret wedding, Daniel showed up at my door. He looked tired, and for the first time, I saw genuine remorse in his eyes, not just frustration. He came in, sat down, and for a long time, neither of us spoke. Finally, he looked at me, and his voice was softer, less defensive than before. Mom, he said, I'm so sorry, truly. I didn't realize how much I hurt you until now. Sarah, she just really pushed for the small wedding, and she didn't want any fuss. I went along with it because I didn't want to upset her, but I should have stood up for you. I should have made sure you were there, or at least told you myself immediately. I was a coward, and I regret it more than anything. My heart ached for him. It was the first time he had truly taken responsibility, the first time he had acknowledged Sarah's influence and his own failure to protect our relationship. I listened, my eyes welling up. I love you, Mom. He continued, and losing you, even for a short time, has been unbearable. I know I messed up. I just hope you can find it in your heart to forgive me. We talked for hours that day. I poured out all my hurt, all my feelings of betrayal and abandonment. He listened, didn't interrupt, and kept apologizing. He admitted that Sarah had indeed been very insistent on keeping me out of the loop, and that he had let her manipulate him. He said he understood why I needed space, and that he would work to earn back my trust. He even said he had had a serious conversation with Sarah about how her actions had impacted our family, and that she needed to respect my role in his life. I told him I loved him, and that while the hurt wouldn't disappear overnight, I was willing to try and rebuild. It was a long, painful conversation, but it felt like a step in the right direction. It was a step towards healing, towards reclaiming my relationship with my son. The aftermath has been complicated. Sarah has been polite, but distant. There haven't been any grand apologies from her, just a vague acknowledgement that things got out of hand. I haven't pressed it, deciding to focus on my relationship with Daniel. We're slowly getting back to our old rhythm, though it's not quite the same yet. There's still a lingering shadow, a faint scar from the wound. I'm trying to move forward, to let go of the anger, but it's hard. Every time I see their wedding photos on social media, photos that someone else must have taken for them, since they said it was just the two of them, a pang of sadness hits me. But I'm trying to focus on the love I have for Daniel, and on the fact that he eventually came around and acknowledged his mistake. He's been making an effort to spend more time with me, just the two of us, and he seems to be pushing back against Sarah's attempts to isolate him. It's a slow process, but I have hope. I know our bond is strong, and I believe we can get through this, even if it leaves a permanent mark. So, that's my story. It's been an incredibly difficult journey, and honestly, I'm still navigating the aftermath. It's not easy to forgive such a profound betrayal, especially from your own child. But I believe in the power of love, and I believe in my son. I'm choosing to believe that we can heal, even if it's a long and winding road. Like this video, if you were on my side, if you understand the pain of being excluded from such a pivotal moment. Subscribe for more stories like this, because I promise, there are always more twists and turns in life. And please, share your final thoughts on this whole mess in the comments section. Did I handle it correctly? Would you have done something different? I'm eager to hear your perspectives. I'll see you all in the next story.